If I could spend 13 days putting you through a wood chipper, I would.
Tad harsh.
None shall survive. Feel my wrath.
Hello, good morning, good evening, good night, dear listeners. Welcome once again to the deep dive where we, as a Patreon episode of the Fluff and Hammer, dive. Wait a minute. Oh, that's what we're doing. My God, who changed the script? The peas, God damn it. What we're doing this episode is a look at something that's just arrived recently and doing a deep dive into that, but also a reminder that we at the Fluff and Hammer desire your cash. That cold, hard dollar that you might have in your pocket. Less than you would spend on a sandwich or a cup of coffee. It could go towards us. $1 towards us. And that goes into keeping the Fluff and Hammer alive, and it keeps the Fluff and Hammer rolling. So this is a free Patreon episode. If you're listening to this on Patreon, on YouTube, or on the feed, it's a reminder that we have a Patreon at patreon.com/the Fluff and Hammer, and we desperately need your cash.
You need to get a version of the old Star Toad with a sign above his head saying, "We'll croak for money."
We'll do stick things for money. We'll do moose stuff. A show we'll listen to called Batman the Animated Series, the podcast, and their way of getting across stuff like this is amazing. It's just like, fuck you, give us money.
See, I kind of admire ones that are honest about it and they don't do ads, you know, paid ads. They just try and push for Patreon instead, and I can respect that because at least they're trying to. There's nothing wrong with a paid ad, but sometimes it's just refreshing to have a channel when you get to a channel. It's just like, okay, they are just trying to do it completely off their own backs. That's fair dues.
And every time you listen to it as well, you listen to a YouTube channel and you hear the please like, share, and subscribe. And then after a couple episodes later, they go, look, 25% of you that are watching this aren't subscribed. And then like a couple of months later, they'll be like, just subscribe, goddammit. And you think, I would never be so blatant. And yet I'm 4 videos in and I'm already itching to like, I know you're listening. I know you're watching.
Give me your likes.
I try not to do stuff like that. I try not to do the like.
It's hard. Yeah, it is hard.
It is. I mean, we have done an amazing job on purely word of mouth. Yeah, and that's what the strength of the Fluff and Hammer community has been. That our fans, that word made my skin itch. The people who listen to the show, they have done a really good job in getting us around the place via word of mouth, and people enjoy the stuff that we do, and that's amazing. That's absolutely brilliant. But I think at some point I am going to have to start thinking about getting adverts and things. I don't want to. I really don't want to. But something has to change because, as it stands right now, this is getting expensive to run. And I know it's difficult for everyone out there. It's not easy for anyone out there. Money is tight and times are hard. But if you've enjoyed this show, please think about giving us $1 a month. And it will go a long way. If 30 people turned up tomorrow and gave us $1 a month, I wouldn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah,
everything would be paid for the shows, and it would be amazing, and it would be great. Or buy my books, and there as well. Second book will be out soon. Come on, buy my books. Maybe I should do the entire thing. Fuck you, give us money. Anyhow, outside your house with a chainsaw. Give us a tenner.
Speaking of advertising for expensive hobbies.
Yes.
Yeah, speaking of advertising for expensive hobbies, we best introduce ourselves. I, as always, am Adam. Just push off that segue. No! As always, I am Adam, and I am with today Mr. Adatum, the other Adam.
I really, really, really want the gem decoration on that Blood Angel's shoulder plate. It just looks so nice. I'm sorry. You can talk about anything else with this thing all episode long. Just know that my heart is fixated upon that gemstone.
My heart is fixated on the onesie. We'll get to the onesie as we go along.
Okay.
And always is Big Swinging D, the man who puts the D into Waldorf.
Very true. Coming live from my negative space.
I feel at some point we have to explain the negative joke.
Don't.
Today is not
Yeah.
the day.
There's also about 46 other in jokes at the moment that you still got
Yeah.
to describe that I don't know about.
Nope. Like, why is David called Waldorf?
Mm,
Hint, it's not a Star Trek moment.
Indeedy.
Moving on.
So, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the Astartes 2 teaser trailer. Now, it may seem a bit weird to talk about Astartes 2 because it's a year off. Weird that we've had a teaser trailer for something a year away. It's a long wait.
I don't know. I think there's a lot that we can discuss just about that as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
There is. There's a lot. There's Astartes 1 itself. There is what Astartes means.
yes,
Because there's
massive.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the background here that people may not be aware of that I think is worth discussing. And I think we're going to kind of try and cover as much of that as we physically can. So I think that the main two things to ask really is, did you guys watch the original Astartes? What did you think of it? And what did you think of Astartes 2?
I've only seen bits of Astartes 1, which is horrific. I know. I really do need to get around to watching it properly. So I've seen segments, but not the entire thing. But what I've seen, I did
Okay.
quite like, and I'm astonished it was a single person that did it, frankly.
Yeah. But it's funny because Astartes came out around about the same time as The Death of Hope. Both of them have the one person has completely built this thing up from scratch. Astartes goes for a very not simplistic, but an underspoken
Yes,
style.
it's very understated, very
Understated.
oddly. It's difficult to describe something that features Space Marines being Space Marines in the most Space Marine way possible as restrained. But there's a lot of restraint to it, whereas the Death of Hope, if I remember right, that really goes hard. Partly because it is using a bit of material with it, but yeah, they're fascinating contrasts, and
yeah, because Death of Hope is more is more, and Astartes is less is more.
I think Astartes as well taps into this something that I am actually beginning to explore as a project. In that, other fictional universes, the lore is there to inform you of exactly what has happened. Whereas, of course, GW and 40K, the lore is a setting, so therefore it is a general overview, but it purposefully leaves a lot missing, not because it wants to punish you, not because it wants to frustrate people, because it allows you to use your imagination to fill in the rest in whatever game or format you want to fill that in with.
Yeah.
And Astartes, I think, it's almost like they cover the basics, so you know that these are warriors. Even if that's why it was such a big entry point to people that have never seen 40K. They understood these were soldiers. They were badass. They understood that because they didn't talk, that meant they were highly trained. It meant they were superior to most of the things there. And then when the weird stuff started happening, it was like, well, I don't understand that either. They don't clearly understand it, but I'm just going to try and interpret it however I feel I want to interpret it. And they bought in. And so the way that he wrote, and I'm going to say right, even though there's obviously not a lot of scripted talk in there, the way he wrote it and the way he set it up actually follows the way that I think Games Workshop wanted the lore in 40K to be. And that's why it's hit home. I will also say, and sorry for a bit of a ramble here, but if you're listening to us and you're a newer fan, so say since 2020, Your poster boy is probably Henry Cavill. Now, I'm not saying that's a nasty thing at all. I'm saying that you're just getting into the hobby, you're learning about the lore, you're getting comfortable with it all, and suddenly here comes Henry Cavill, who's like leading the charge for more exposure in the media, and it's all really exciting and great, and you can enjoy all the memes and good stuff. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you are an older fan, and I mean much older fan, which would apply to you two, then it would be like, well, the Henry Cavill thing is, yeah, that's a great new development. That's an interesting thing. That's something that is great. But you're not going to buy into all of the hype because there was 40k before Henry Cavill. You know there will be 40k after him. There's loads of other things to champion. There's things from the 90s and the 2000s when stuff was really tough and there were one or two things that shone like diamonds and you still wish that they were around. Things that you go for. For people like me who are in between, so before Cavill, but not established, not established to be old guard. We came in around the time of Astartes. And so therefore, Astartes is our Henry Cavill. Astartes is our hope of something bigger, something better. And that's what I've noticed with people watching this. You can tell there are the people that love this as a new media. There are people that are amazed and have just come into the fandom, like some VTuber I watched this morning who was so excited and then finished the stream by going, I can't wait to find out more about the lore.
Yeah.
And her channel, the notes were full of supportive 40k fans.
Absolutely.
That's great. But then you get a couple of other people, and you can tell they are the people that really came into this with the original Astartes, and they are losing their sodding minds. And it's it's almost the relief that their guy gets to do what he wants to do, and they are so down with this. And as you will have guessed, that answers your question in that I saw the original Astartes. I was blown away with it. I was impressed as much by what they put in there as much as what they left out and allowed you to imagine. And the last couple of years have been really interesting because of the politics of him being hired, stuff being taken off of YouTube, stuff being amended. What was Astartes 2 going to be? And then this Amazon thing coming out, which is complicated matters, but also clearly enhanced matters. Oh, there's so much. I'm going to let you guys talk for a bit and then I'm going to start waffling later, but that's me done for the moment.
So, what is Astartes? I'm just going to give a little bit of an idea here. So, Astartes was created by Syama Peterson as a fun film, which it's funny actually. Fun films are one of those weird things that me and Mr. White over here have bonded and connected over and done a lot of work with over the years. Batman Dead End, the Casey Jones one, you may remember that we did a lot of work talking about that many, many years ago.
Oh, God. And even before that, going back to the 90s, I shot a fan film with a female Doctor Who, which used at the time an official BBC TARDIS.
Wow.
Because back then the IP was so worthless that if you literally just asked the BBC, they would drop the whole sodding thing off to you, no matter where you lived.
That sounds about right, actually, to be honest, given where Who was in the 90s.
Syama took 4 years to animate Astartes, which something that comes in at less than 10 minutes long is impressive. The amount of work that he managed to accomplish with this thing was incredible. He created his own Space Marine chapter and worked desperately on making them more like they are in the books. Because one of the interesting things about Space Marines is in media they're often tank-like, very clunky and immobile. But in the books they're very agile. And one of the things he set out to do was to make the Space Marines fast and to make them scary.
Yeah, it's something that's always been a struggle with Space Marine, because it's if folks have not kind of read a lot of the background about what a Space Marine is, it's very difficult to get across the idea that yes, they're wearing this big heavy armor, but the armor is effectively a second skin. They move freakishly fast. Yes, they all weigh at least a ton because of all the armor, but that's still something a ton moving at superhuman speeds. And Astartes did a very good job of getting that across because you felt the weight, but also I always kind of think back to some classic 80s action movies because I was watching one, I think might have been Commando, and there's some shots of
Mhm.
Arnie, and you forget that during this period, yes, he was big and bulky, but also he was very smooth in his movements, and
Yeah.
because you see him just kind of like crossing a low wall, carrying a heavy machine gun, and it's effortless, and he's just yeah,
Gliding.
and like there's some shots in Conan where he just leaps onto a stone platform, and it's just the smoothness, and that's kind of what Astartes gets about what a space marine is. They do that. Yeah, they can crash through walls, and they are walking tanks, but they're walking tanks that move like an F1 car.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, this has got me all kind of excited. I mean, is it
It's interesting as well that Astartes came out. I mean, I think it was 2010 for the Ultramarines movie, wasn't it?
about that?
Say again,
It
sorry.
might have been. I think it was earlier. I think it was about 2007, 2008, because I remember we had it on the
Okay.
shelves in my bookshop before we
Yeah.
closed.
It's it. I do think. I mean, look, I don't know the reasoning for making Astartes. I don't know if there was some core thing that sparked off
Well,
the project, but I do think that watching Ultramarines makes you want to go out and do something better. Wants you to go no, wants you to because you see that and you realize how Space Marines should not
Mm.
be portrayed.
yeah.
And ironically, of course, Tim Miller with the connection to Amazon and Secret Level, with the original Dawn of War as well, they managed to achieve something there that wasn't achieved in their own feature
Mm.
films. So I can see why people have desperately wanted to do something. And of course, you've got these amazing cosplays out there. I mean, it's almost par for the course when you see a Space Marine at a comic convention. But of
Mhm.
course, the reality of it is they're slow, they're clunky because they're big
Yeah.
costumes. So you know that you've got to go the computer route. It just takes somebody with a lot of drive. And also, as you said, Adam, as well, this took 4 years. So you have to then come up with a story that is going to be relevant in 4 years. So you
Mhm.
have to come up with something vague enough that won't age. Basically a classic skirmish story.
Yeah.
And I think that's
I
what
mean,
he's
one of
done.
the beauties of
But it,
40K that again is very hard sometimes to get across to people coming into the setting is that it's intentionally large. I mean, it's very easy when you look into oh, so you have the Imperium and all these other factions, but it's when you start to realize the scale because as you start zooming in onto like sectors. I mean, the whole point of it is that there are whole subsectors that never even get a mention in some bits of lore, but there's still hundreds of star systems. There are whole
Yeah.
campaigns that go almost unmentioned or give it a single line of text somewhere, and they're the most horrendous battles we could possibly imagine from our perspective, but they're just another day in the 41st millennium.
yeah, just another day on
Yeah,
this rock.
but it
I
leaves you
mean,
space
I know for a
to go
fact.
in and do those little those small there's the space there to go. Well, we've got this story happening here. Why has no one heard of it before? Well, because it's happening in this particular sector. It's off in the corner, and no one's heard about it yet.
I know for a fact that there are at least 15, maybe 16 books that have been written but not published. And this is obviously in my imagination, where the Lamenters actually take over and manage entire solar systems without a single death. It's just they've not been published yet. But yeah, going back to what you originally said, Adam, yeah, I think Astartes 1 was the kickoff for an awful lot of stuff. But what was your reaction to it at the time?
I was blown away by it.
Mm,
The fact that you were getting a week by week drop of a even 3 minutes, I think it was.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
3-minute episodes that were dropping for 5 weeks, I think it was,
I
5
think so.
parts.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And then being able to sit and watch the entire thing afterwards, it was glorious. And the fact that, we know that Samaya, I apologize if I'm butchering your name. I do apologize.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Everyone apologizes. Nobody's quite sure. I think even
Yeah.
Valrak, who has arguably the most connection to him, I believe, still struggles over the pronunciation of the name.
He vanished after Astartes, and Astartes got moved over to the official Warhammer YouTube,
Yeah.
which was amazing.
Yeah.
That's a huge
Absolutely.
moment, which then led to a lot of people who'd also made fan films spitting the dummy out a little bit. And it's funnily enough, none of the ones that made really good ones spat the dummy out. It's just one of those interesting moments.
Yeah.
And what you ended up getting was a lot of people asking, well, what's happening with Astartes 2? Is it going to come out? Is it going to happen? And everything's been very, very quiet. Now, rumor has it, and I haven't had a confirmation of this yet, but it does seem to be the case, that Samaya worked on the secret level episode.
Oh, he's in the credits.
Is he? Oh, right.
Excellent.
I tried to watch the credits, but unfortunately, a small child kept hanging off me, and it was very hard to.
He's
see.
not only in the credits, but even if he wasn't, his DNA
Yeah.
is literally so much in that film. And not only that as well. Oh no, I'll go on to that later. That's another rant, but continue. Sorry.
Yes, the secret level has a weird connection to Astartes. It feels like it's connected to Astartes as much as it is connected to Space Marine 2,
Yep.
which is brilliant, wonderful.
Agree.
Love it. What he has done is he's managed to create his own little corner of 40k, which has now become official. Which that's the dream.
The fact
really,
that the
isn't it?
Retributors are now an official Imperial Fist
Yeah.
successor. They're in the law. They have official transfers, don't they?
I'm not sure. Quite
Possibly.
possibly.
I know you can get transfers because there were some unofficial ones back when Astartes dropped initially and became popular. Because of course people did transfers for it. Because who wouldn't?
Because this is the Warhammer hobby. Yeah.
But the fact that, I mean, it is, like I say, it's the dream. He created something that's become official. GW, for whatever reason, whatever they liked what he did, or they saw something there that they were like, we need to hire this guy.
Yeah.
And I know folks have worried for years, but we hadn't heard anything about Astartes 2. There was a worry. And then...
Well, he did a very, very small
Yes.
teaser.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very, very small teaser. But what was interesting, at this time, Astartes comes out, and then there's these rumblings about the shutting down people making fan films, right? Which didn't really actually happen.
No. It got quite overblown.
Sorry. Can I jump in here? There's a
Certainly.
couple of things, because this is really important. So for people who don't know, because there's a very good chance that people won't know about this. So this was Drama of the Month. This was one of those things. If you're new to 40k, I beg you please, if you see anything about the words woke, Amazon, Cavill, 40k put together, that's Drama of the Month. It's bullshit. Somebody on a YouTube channel is trying to sell you drama, get you clicks, and just talking rubbish. Couple of years back, it was this. It was exactly this same thing, and it was a big deal for a while. And it was just bad communication being misinterpreted and being spammed out. The only things that what did happen, and it is worth mentioning actually, is when GW picked up on this Astartes, they asked the creator to make a couple of subtle changes to the original to just bed it in better with what they wanted.
Yeah.
There was nothing nasty. The creator went on record and said he was happy to do it. I think it was something like the change of a bolter sound, and maybe they took out a line of dialogue or something like that. They also took it off YouTube. well, they did at the time, but obviously you can find it easily nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
But that did spark off because that was then taking off media that people had been free to access. So that was why there was a bit of a kerfuffle.
Mhm.
And I think as well, some sites were hit as well at the same time. But that was for more overt IP infringement
Yeah.
rather than just being a fan. So, but yeah, and then it as you say, then it went quiet for a while. There was a trailer released, but then we had the addition of Amazon. And Adam, you probably want to talk about this, but
Well, what is worth saying is what happened between those two moments is Astartes moved over to YouTube, to the official Games Workshop YouTube, so you can actually watch it on there, and it's
cool.
also on Warhammer
Yeah,
Plus.
it's on Warhammer TV. It was
Yeah.
actually embedded on the community site for a while, for quite a while. It was. You
It
could
was,
just
yeah,
click
yeah.
a link on the community web page, and it would take you straight to the video, which is
Mhm.
that's another big thing. That
Yeah,
they were
because
quite keen to say, look, we're not taking it away. We're making it official. We're canonizing it effectively.
yeah,
So we like this.
which is it's a huge thing. It's so big, and I think it's hard to kind of get your head around just how much of a massive thing this is. Games Workshop is they do one of two things. They either completely ignore somebody when they're doing something, or they go out their way to stop it from happening.
Yeah.
Which is it's business.
It's funny because the two biggest examples of a creator doing something that influences not just the fandom but the general public are Astartes
Mhm.
and Bricky. I know it sounds silly, but it's
Not at
true.
all.
Astartes was the first wave of people on YouTube going, "Oh, this is something I can react to." And for a lot of people, it was their gateway into the hobby.
Yeah.
And then the other one has been Bricky, which I'm sorry, when you have a introduction to Warhammer, which has been seen, I think, 9 million
Oh yeah.
times
Mhm.
and has been reacted to by at least a couple of hundred people, and yeah, GW have bought the rights to one, and I don't think there's ever been any interaction regarding the other. So
No.
you're absolutely right there. GW have this very odd process of what they'll pick up on and what they won't.
Yeah, it it reminds me a lot of how Hasbro deals with third party stuff, which is they will either completely ignore it or they will go after it with a fine tooth claw, and there's no rhyme or reason for it, and I'll never understand it as long as I
Yeah.
live. It's
It
just
is.
weird.
It's one of those odd things because, I mean, like you say, GW normally either ignore or drop the hammer, and yet with the Astartes, they didn't. And
No, what they did was what they used to do, which was pick somebody up thinking that you've created something good there. How about you come and get involved? How about you come and work for us? Which is what they did. It's how the staffing in Games Workshop exploded in the early 90s
yeah,
because they saw what people were doing out there. Come and work for White Dwarf, spend a couple of years working on White Dwarf, then you move up and into the game development or into whatever. That's how Games Workshop worked. And it's the first time that somebody has used a more modern technique, in this case, YouTube and CGI, has managed to access that old style of entering Games Workshop. Now, as far as I understand, he doesn't work for Games Workshop fully. He is freelance, but he can create stuff for them with their blessing. And that is beautiful. That's brilliant. That's the dream,
absolutely.
But I think that, and this might be what you're about to move on to, that's why maybe the Amazon thing is a little bit more interesting in regards to him and its effects on Astartes too.
Well, yes. I mean, the fact that
And
we know he's in
this
secret
is
level.
this is mostly guessing as well, I imagine, at this point.
Yeah, no, a lot of guesstimation happening here, which is why we're not going to spend too much time prophesizing, I think. But we know that he moved into Amazon. He worked on the secret level episode, the second best secret level episode, because no matter what anyone says, that Mega Man episode is amazing.
It is.
And I'll
I
fight
enjoyed
you.
that one.
I
The
loved it.
hit
It got me
the
playing
hit
Mega
rate on
Man.
secret level is pretty astonishing.
Even Once and Future King, is it called Once and Future
New
King?
World.
New World. I've never heard of the game, never played it, but that episode was just
Yeah, I mean,
beautiful.
probably the weakest is the last one, the Sony Let's Play one, because it
Mhm.
featured a lot of stuff that people thought they were going to have episodes on, like Kratos or the Helldivers. Instead, they're just cameos. A big advert for Sony.
Haven't
But
watched that one yet.
it's weird. I wouldn't
Hmm.
necessarily say it doesn't do what it's aiming to do well, but it's just weird compared to everything else.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I say, secret level, Mega Man, 40k one,
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man, yeah, Pac-Man. Jesus Christ.
You know, by the way, the only real loser from Secret Level.
Concord.
Well, I
No,
reckon,
no. Xbox. The guys at Microsoft who didn't want the, I believe it was the crossover of Master Chief and Doom, and
Really?
they said no.
Jesus.
And now I believe that's it. If it's not, it's a team up just as mouthwatering, but they turned it down, and apparently that actually made the news. Obviously, while Secret Level was still in early stages, and of course, then when Secret Level comes out and it's like a slam dunk, and it's
Mhm.
done really well, and 40k has done quite extraordinarily well, even compared to the rest of Secret Level.
Yes.
But then people are turning around and going, "So, how's that Halo franchise going?"
Yeah.
Microsoft and their willingness to try and completely kill Halo. It's
Oh well.
bizarre.
Yeah.
But anyhow, see that's kind of where we are. That brings us up to the now point, where Amazon is now in a position where we know a 40k series is coming. We know that this. I feel really self-conscious now about trying to say his name. Samaya is working on Astartes 2. Now, whether that's going to be for Amazon, whether that's going to be for Warhammer Plus, my guess is going to be for Warhammer Plus.
Yeah. Oh, they put the logo at the start. It's going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something that's now incoming. And it's a fascinating little slice of where we are now with Games Workshop as an overreaching brand. You know, we are at this point now where Games Workshop and Warhammer 40k particularly has moved out of the basement. It has moved out of the kitchen. It's now global. And
Yeah.
it has been for a
Yeah.
while. But every now and again, something happens that really hammers home just how big this is.
2024, just I think honestly, I think Space Marine 2,
Mhm.
it was like one of the last things that stopped it by being accepted
Yeah.
by the wider, what I would just say, the pop culture media and gamers. Gamers were huge, and people flocked to
I
it,
still find
and
it
it's been such a huge success.
It's astonishing because even in the run up to Space Marine, to its launch, no one expected it to be.
No.
Well, people expected it might be good, but there were worries about the delays it had, and
Mhm.
and even though Space Marine, it's the original, has a fan base, and it is a good game. It's one of those. It The best way I to describe it is from that era where you could reliably have a crop of 6 to 7 out of 10 games coming out every year that you could drop into and they'd be fun and they'd be good, but they wouldn't be
Mhm.
like top tier. And as much as I love Space Marine, it isn't in the top tier. It's a solid game, but it's not top tier. It didn't sell very well on its initial release, to be
No, it
fair.
didn't.
And
No.
then, and I mean, we've gone through a decade of 40k game wise. There's been a fair few, but compared to Space Marine 2, I mean, what's it? We had prior to this, you'd had Dark Tide, Necromunda Hired Gun, Mechanicus were probably the 3 biggest releases, and Dawn of War 3, which yeah,
Yeah.
Dawn of War
Yep.
3 is probably kind of like the end of the really bad games for 40k. Since then, if you look at the games that are out there for 40k that have come out since then, even the ones that haven't really hit have stuck around. I mean, Speed Freak still has a solid audience from what I gather. Shooter's Blood and Teeth is one of those games that you can just drop in with your mates and just go nuts for a bit.
Yeah.
You've got there's like 2 or 3 different card games running, and
There
they
is.
still seem to be doing well, which I find kind of surprising, to be fair.
There's one of the big reasons for that is that people moved away from Hearthstone. Blizzard's Hearthstone shot the bed quite
Yeah.
badly
Yep.
about 2 years ago. And as a result, people moved away from that looking for other games that were similar in order to continue getting that
Yeah.
fix. And the 40k one, which I'm trying desperately to remember the name of, and
I
it is
think
not
hang
coming
on.
to me. Warp Forge
Yeah,
something.
and there's a Horus Heresy version as well. It's
There is, yeah. And combat cards. They're still kicking around on the app
combat
stores.
cards will never die.
No. But they're wrong. They're not the correct combat cards because combat cards are super bright, super colourful, have loads of red, green, and yellow, and they are basically top
Yeah.
trumps.
Oh, and of course I forgot Vermintide 1 and 2. I shouldn't have. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. But
Which are the slow burning kind of. They did well, but they didn't make any big headlines.
No, but
They kept
were
the online fandom.
yeah, they had a
running.
consistency and the amount of content they had. Oh, and of course Rogue Trader, which gives you another way to experience things.
But don't forget, Games Workshop released an MMO on mobile phones that was surprisingly good.
Yeah.
There's a Warhammer Fantasy Battle MMO you can play on mobile, and it's an MMO. You know, it's not a pay to win MMO. It's an MMO. It's bizarre.
Well, I mean, the old Warhammer Fantasy Battle MMO was actually pretty decent.
It's even better now.
Oh, that's right, because it's still.
I know
There's separate servers, aren't there, for it? Yeah.
Yep. So Return to Ruin is out, and you can play that at any given point. You can grab hold of that, and it is really, really good. They've ironed out a load of bugs. It's excellent. I love it. And the only thing stopping me from playing it is that if I did that, other stuff wouldn't happen.
Yes.
Like, eating.
It's why I've tried very hard to avoid MMOs, even though I occasionally log back into Star Trek Online and the Old Republic from occasion, and then go, nope, close that.
So something that has been a constant, even though there's been a few mobile apps that have been dodgy, and the IP with Games Workshop, they until recently they've never had an idea of really what they wanted to do with games. Which, if you're not aware, GW have recently come out and gone, okay, we get it now, we know where to go. Space Marine 2 has kind of taught us a lesson. But of course, what was going on outside of their world in the greater games industry now has a huge effect on what happens this year, because in recent years, I mean, anyone who's listening to this will know gaming has suffered from a lot of stuff going on, a lot of politics coming in. And I'm not saying good or bad politics, I'm just saying stuff has been coming in. But also, as well, the same sort of stuff that you see happening in movies where studios are trying to second guess everything or jumping onto fads or stuff like this. And you end up with very watered down products. And that was happening across the industry. And there were those individual gems that still shined. But in the last couple of years, you've seen a huge difference between the smaller studios that get it and then the larger studios that don't. And arguably one of the biggest things that changed the landscape here and set Space Marine up wasn't a GW game, it was Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Baldur's Gate came in, and all Baldur's Gate was a game in the spirit of the original.
Yeah.
And that sounds so simple, and you could say, well, why is that? That sounds easy to make. No, it wasn't. It was a huge challenge. When it landed huge. And Space Marine 2, if you've not played it, please just check out like footage of people playing it or experiencing it. Because in the same way, it is very much a studio going, okay, we're going to tap into that that spirit of what 40k is. Ironically, that same thing that Astartes has. We're gonna find a different way, an action way of showing you Astartes. You're gonna be in that world. You'll know it's that world, but you'll still have fun. And so suddenly, all these people are going, "This is great. This is a breath of fresh air," which is nuts when they're talking about a breath of fresh air being the same place that we have Mortarion. But so it's primed everyone up for going, oh, maybe we should look at this universe, because this universe, and again, I know I'm being ironic here, but it's yet to be corrupted by politics.
Yeah.
And you have a fandom which, although we're batshit and although we have our own niggles, and GW are trying to modernize stuff, a lot of the time they're getting it done in the right way. And so everything is like, the stage is set for returning Astartes to be huge.
Absolutely.
It's in some ways, I think it's kind of a bad idea to have it coming out on Warhammer Plus, because having it coming out via YouTube as an advertisement for Warhammer Plus, or having it come out on Amazon
Agree.
itself,
I was actually going to say,
would be such a massive boost.
so at the moment, Warhammer Plus actually does have quite a lot of content.
Oh, it does, yeah.
I was just thinking back in my mind, what if GW said to Amazon, look, do you want to put this stuff up either permanently or just as for a limited period? Because they do that on Amazon. A lot of stuff comes and goes.
Yep.
Yep.
Can you imagine if they
Oh,
just
yeah.
set up a dedicated Warhammer Plus tag? Here's the entire library. Here's Angels of Death. Here's the Tithes. Here's Pariah Nexus. Here's Hammer and Bolter. Here is the full gamut of the experience.
It's just for Prime members, because that way they still keep some exclusivity. But and also it can be obviously a business relationship. There will be profits to be made, so both sides will be quite happy. But that way as well, it gives, you're right, it gives people another option. But it is difficult for them as well, because they do need to push Warhammer Plus, and they are working really, really hard to. You can tell new projects that are coming out on there, the animation, the quality is jumping upwards.
Yeah.
So it's a case of they kind of need this, but at the same time, you're right, Adam. They kind of need to get this out to the public. It's like Astartes was the huge gatekeep, like entry to so many people. If you don't let people see Astartes 2, it's going to be really, really difficult for them to replicate that success.
I'll be very surprised if Astartes 2 doesn't at least go up on, however it's been released, whether it's in, like the original, they're going to do it in small chapters, or it's going to be one drop. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't initially show up on the Warhammer YouTube page first.
I can imagine the first episode being there.
Certainly that, bare minimum. But if we don't, I'd be surprised if we don't get the whole thing on there, to be honest. Maybe for a limited time, and then it goes back behind the paywall for Warhammer Plus. But if you get the sense that they can't, because they do seem to respect what Astartes did and what Simon did, and I don't think they wouldn't want to try and replicate how that release hit with people, because they know people. I mean, the whole point of it, they've even said, look, we know this is at least a year out at this point, but we wanted to show to prime everyone. We wanted you to know it is coming. We haven't forgotten.
So, shall we? I don't want to push you guys if you want to talk more about something else, but do you want to just, Adam? Do you want to just talk about what the trailer is and what the trailer isn't? Because I know that's something that I think is probably going to interest a lot of people.
Well, yeah, we can move on to the trailer, and I think there's a lot to be said about what we are seeing.
There is. It's intriguing again that they've said that none of the stuff in the trailer is actually from the show itself. This is all basically backstory for our.
So this is the flashback episodes from the beginning.
I mean, we may not even see any of this information. This could just be literally just for the trailer to give you a hint. of everyone,
You
which,
see,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
which is
this
bonkers
is
given
what
what's there. So
yeah, this is what I don't understand because why and I have to admit this is kind of why I pushed to jump onto this before you jumped into the trailer itself. Um, you wouldn't create that many assets.
mm,
Like
No.
for instance, that first shot we see of the Hive City. You cannot tell me they created all those assets for one shot that is not in the actual the end
mm,
project unless there has been a change. And again, this is where I feel, and I know it's a bit conspiracy theory, but I feel personally that Secret Level borrowed a hell of a lot from what Astartes was going to be.
mm,
Hmm.
I mean, just the fact that where does most of Astartes take place? It takes place in a long trench on a desolate planet where there's chaos.
Yeah.
You now like the end of Astartes 1. Where are they? A long trench with a bunch of statues that look like chaos, and they have a small team of space marines. I mean,
mm,
yeah, it feels like there's, and that's not a bad thing, but you then end up in a situation where we have these glorious visuals, which are clearly very different from the teaser that was at the end of the original Astartes, like a
Hmm.
massive upgrade, that are so polished. I don't think one person could have made them, but if that same person is supervising the people, that's great.
mm,
And I just get this feeling that because the way they've framed it as well, and also is just the very fact they've gone 2026, and it's
Yeah.
like, yes, 2026 is 11 months away, but December 2026 is a little bit
yeah,
further. So you might have a little bit longer to wait than you realize, depending on when they actually
yeah.
drop it.
I was watching
Um,
Kyrgios video going over the thing yesterday, and he said the same thing. He's like, that could be 11 months time. It could be.
yeah,
It could be. Yes.
20.
So that was kind of funny to me.
and you do get that feeling as well that because they're releasing this stuff. I mean, I would like to think that there is. I mean, this could almost be the pre-credits thing of you see a squad getting taken down with a lone survivor,
Mm,
and then you just cut in back into the main
yeah.
the main target of the
Hmm.
the Death Watch squad that we see. But yeah, I just can't believe the idea that you would produce this quality, this level of stuff, without there being a reason for you doing it. Because if you wanted to create a trailer, you would create a trailer out of what you've
Mm,
got.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only reason you would create a trailer out of scraps that were already there that you might not ever use is if you don't have anything to show people.
mm,
And I think they wanted to ride the Space Marine 2 momentum. I think
Yes.
Astartes, obviously, people were worried about it. Um, and I think it's very much a soothing exercise. It's great excitement, but yeah, it just feels really weird that we're essentially watching a fake trailer, and it's the promise of something.
mm.
It is literally the on-screen equivalent of the Star Wars early bird box set. And my goodness, if people get that, well done, you've come to the right place.
Oh my god. Something I never thought I'd hear about ever again. Okay, here's my theory. And this is a theory based in too many years of following this stuff and drawing conclusions that usually end up being at least half right, because that's the sickness that's in
Yeah.
my brain. Um, we know that Games Workshop will not, at this point in time, advertise Firstborn Marines
Mm,
Yep,
because Firstborn Marines are slowly but surely being phased out. That's
yep,
simply what's happening with them. What we see here, as far as I can tell, they are Firstborn Marines. They're not
yep. They're all
Primaris.
firstborn,
yep.
and they all look cool. They've
Yep.
made so much stuff in this look cool as hell. They made Predators look cool.
Predators are
I know
cool.
they
How
are,
dare
but
you?
they've never looked this as good as they have here. Driving down a highway, blasting away with their main cannon.
When this comes out, I want to take the footage of them in the car, in the tank, driving along, and overlay "Don't Be a Menace to South Central's drinking your juice in the hood" over the top of it. You know the scene I mean. Hi, Grandma. Um, so we know that they're not going to push the firstborn because the firstborn are being phased out. So my guess is that what we are seeing in this trailer, this is all either from the very first episode, the very first 2 episodes, or, which is my theory, this is from a collection of shorts that will be released before the main series.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen a lot of people theorizing that, well, this is these 5. This is them pre-crossing the Rubicon.
Yes.
Which makes sense. It's also interesting because someone noted that it's actually all 5 are successor chapters because it's not actually a Blood Angel. It's an Angel Vermilion.
No.
It's a slightly different color scheme and layout, but it isn't actually a Blood Angel. They're all successors. And I think they're not even all from the same. So you got Retributors of Fists, Scythes are Ultramarines, Angels are Angels, Sons of Medusa are Iron Hands, Mortifactors might be White Scars.
Mortifactors are
Angels, aren't
Ultramarines,
they?
aren't they?
They might be Ultramarines. That could break my theory, but it's interesting that they've gone for a spread in any case.
I was gonna say because I'd seen the talk about Angels Vermilion, and I was actually trying to look at just trying to get a handle on it because also as well because you had the insignia on the helmet, and I was wondering, is it Black Company?
You mean Death Company?
Sorry, Death Company. Yeah, because of the black livery. Sorry, because I was just wondering as well. Just the idea. I mean, if you were going to pull anyone out as a lone survivor, a good situation for that would probably be in a Suicide Squad.
I mean, Death Company. Anyone who falls for Death Company doesn't come back, but, unless you're Mephiston.
Unless you're one guy.
Mephiston comes back. Lamartis is too angry to fall completely. So, and that's kind of it. Everyone else, if they survive their last run, then they have an appointment with Astaroth and his instrument of execution, shall we say? But no, Vermilion. They're basically more. They've got the same sort of crimson as the Flesh Terrors, but otherwise it's just a solid red paint scheme with a winged skull motif for their icon. But because they're Blood Angel successors, they do use a lot of the same iconography. Well, folks use a lot of Blood Angel upgrades to give them their bits. So a winged blood drop is not uncommon to see on there.
Okay.
I just wanted to point out that the Mortifactors are in fact a successor chapter of the Ultramarines. So
cool.
Eat
Okay.
it.
That.
I know what I'm talking about.
That's theory down.
Well,
terrifying thought.
I've already established that I'm the newbie in this just by my stupid comments on so many previous podcasts. So I get away with
I'm
this.
just glad the Scythes and the Sons of Medusa are there, because the Scythes I've come to adore since reading the Heresy books and Call, the great work.
You realize as well, I don't think anyone's thought of this, but you could get a cameo by Call.
God, that'd be good.
Don't
tempt me, Frodo.
For some reason, because I've been watching Batman the animated series to go along with the show I've been watching, the first thing that came to my head there was "Don't pinch my pennies," and that's a dirty sentence. Shall we get into what we actually see and don't see in the trailer then? Because
we probably should.
Yes.
We don't want to be.
Yeah, apologies to the people that started this recording thinking, "Oh, this will be a quick update."
Well, look, this is the primer for what the Fluff and Hammer does. We go on tangents. We luxuriate in language because we're all.
Just wait until you hit the Fluff and Busters.
Because we're all verbose nerds who can't make to shut up.
I know when to shut up. It's when the recording stops. So yeah, there's quite a lot here, and I think trying to get through it all is going to be an exercise in kicking yourself in the ass. So what we basically see is a collection of little vignettes of different chapters in different places, whether it's coming down into a hive city to fight some Chaos Space Marines who look freaking amazing. There's a weird wet look to them, which is, oh, how love that so much. Blowing everything up. We've also got the sides of the Emperor, who are fighting against a Tyranid incursion,
because
doing a lot of splashy
they're
splashy.
Scythes, and who else do they fight?
Indeed, indeed. Um, there's a Chaos. I think it's a Chaos guy. I'm not sure if it's a Chaos guy or if it's
I think
the
it's
Angel
I think it's
Vermilion.
from Mortefactor fighting the Orcs.
Yeah, sorry, I've missed that one out. Yeah, there's the Multifactor fighting the Orcs. The Orcs
Now,
are weird.
isn't that slightly different from the original trailer?
I don't know.
Because there was a little preview for Astartes 2 that went out quite a while back. And I
Yes, there
believe,
was.
joking aside, I believe that was a Lamenter.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to have to look that up because I honestly cannot remember.
I mean, the Orcs I think look a little
But
weird
yeah.
just because of the lighting, because there's a very reddish light on them, which I think
Yeah.
shifting their skin tones, because they are still green. It's just shifting them more into a muddier green.
Actually, I was going to ask about this because I'm quite intrigued. So these are for a start, what are these orcs? Because they are about the height of the Space Marine.
They'll just be a regular Orc boy. Orc boys
Yeah.
are huge. You because all the minis are always
Okay.
kind of hunched over. It's hard to get across sometimes how big an Orc really is.
That's good. So for people who are brand new who just jumped in, so this is a regular orc, but this is arguably the smallest of the orc types.
Yeah, I mean,
Of the main
yeah,
orc types. So a knob would be what, another foot or
yeah.
two? Or...
Basically, Orcs get bigger as they get more
Yeah.
confident, basically, or they gain more. As more boys believe in them, they kind of feed off that and they get bigger. Is probably the best way to put it. So it's why you get like Gaz, who's huge nowadays compared to how they started.
Ah.
But it's not because this is kind of how you would expect a fight between Marines and Orcs, not necessarily to end up, but how it would be. You'd have a lot of Orcs and very few Space Marines, and the Marine. I mean, I anticipate he's going to be doing the full superhero off me pose in the full video.
I was going to say, because that's the one thing where, although, their brutality comes across there, it's the one moment in the trailer where I don't go, oh, he's dead. Which is weird because I know that an orc can probably smash the crud out of that armor nice and quickly, but I also know how tough a Space Marine is. And considering that the Space Marine had just done a magic trick where he made an orc's head disappear, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's a lovely scene though. It's lovely to see them get, and there's nothing. I mean, at some point you would expect one of them to open their mouth and some lovely, English football hooligan accented voice to come out, but at the same time, the fact they don't say anything and they have that swagger, they have that same like urgent sense of purpose that the Marines have when in their little walking scene. They look menacing, which is
and it
great.
also it does get across how powerful an Orc is because they are big.
Yeah,
effectively, an Orc boy is more or less an equivalent in terms of raw strength and physical capability to a Space Marine. That is pretty much the one-to-one comparison. It's just the Marine is wearing power armor, the Orc boy is wearing, well, trousers, hobnail boots, and a snazzy shirt in all likelihood.
And the chopper.
And
Got my
they've managed to take a Marine to the ground. Not necessarily beating him, but he's on the floor. So that does a lot to get across how. And that was just one Orc doing that, and maybe it was piled in.
Yeah, true. I am actually. Oh, sorry, go on, mate.
So the original little teaser from 4 years ago is scrubbed from the internet.
That's interesting.
I have managed to find one video, and there are scene for scene that are exactly the same, but the Marine chapters are completely different.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's genuinely very interesting.
Can you make out which chapters have been swapped out?
I've just trying to see it. It's a 16-second video, so it's very hard to. So it's very hard to get all the details down. I've stuck it into the record. text, so you guys can have
Let's
it
have a
as well.
shifty.
But it is interesting to see that there are scenes that are one-to-one exactly the same, just with different chapters.
I must admit, I'm kind of in
It's
awe of the name of the person whose channel it's on.
yeah, shout out to Bilbo T. Baggins. Yeah. The only person who has this teaser still.
All right, so I don't recognise that chapter who the Retributors replace. That's an interesting. It's either white or off, like a off green color.
Yeah, it looks like a white scars,
I mean,
and we won't get too
yeah,
torn into that, I think. But it is interesting that it looks like a lot of what originally was planned for Astartes 2 is going to be what's in Astartes 2. So
yeah.
that's good to know.
Yeah, it's just weird that they've relied on that older
Oh,
stuff.
this is real interesting.
Because this is where I feel that GW I think have done this wisely, because they want you to know that Astartes guy is still doing stuff, that Astartes 2 is coming, to feed off that relationship to the Amazon show, but also at the same time to go. I mean, and it does feel like, look, we've still got a long way to go, because clearly he's been doing other stuff.
Yeah.
And although they've changed some of the stuff in the animation, which is nice, by the way, because it shows as well that he had that stuff made or built. He didn't need an Amazon team or other people to help him. But the other shots in the trailer where, you see like the ice tunnel and stuff like that, there's definitely that extra. Yes, that's the only thing missing, by the way. That the absence of a Wii in that point is criminal. But it just shows you just how much what the scope that they're going for here. So fascinating stuff.
I've got a silly idea, and I might have to do it at some point.
I kind of love the shot of the Orc Commandos with their purple camo. That's really.
But I mean, what stands out for you the most? I think as we start to draw this down into a close, what stands out for you guys the most from that trailer, other than the guy just going whee up the tunnel?
I want to say there's a confidence to this thing,
Oh yeah, I was going to say exactly the same
'cause-
thing. Confidence and
yeah,
swagger.
I mean, you
Yes,
have
swagger's a
that
good word.
battleship, and it's just a simple shot of that cruiser that's falling, which is just like that'd be a big scene in almost anything else. But here it's just blink, you'll miss it. It's a battleship. It's going down. It outmasses a Star Destroyer by a factor of quite a bit. This is not a good thing to be happening. I mean, I keep going back to the shot of the Predators on the highway, which is this is doing stuff that it's putting, because on the tabletop it's really hard to sometimes picture properly how this stuff would work, because we're so used to move and shoot. It's all turn based. It's all abstracted. This, and Astartes 1 did it well as well, but this is showing that it's still going to carry on that approach of however you feel something should have worked on the tabletop. We're going to try and show you how it actually would have functioned in reality.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in the fiction, you can read a lot about tanks that are having these mass roving engagements. And you can see it in your head, but it doesn't translate. Even in the video games, it can be very hard to see that translate. Like Dawn of War, most of the tanks aren't that mobile. They stop for a lot of time to get their full firepower going. But to see a tank at speed doing this, and one of the back shoots its hunter killer missile off, and it's just great. And then there's a rhino with some guys doing a drive by on some nids, and whatever the Scythes are doing with their frankly staggeringly good capes, and some nut will try and do a squad with those.
What grabs me is the world building.
Yes.
So there's little things all the way through this, like the Emperor forgets, a wonderful little play on the Emperor protects, that really sings to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can connect to, and you can kind of imagine what it means, what that story's going to be. But as a moment, the thing that really steps out for me, and it's it's such a weird thing. It's just seeing the tanks.
Yeah.
It's just seeing these tanks moving at high speed, flying down this corridor, and then the weight as this car is just knocked out of the
Yeah.
way. It's oh, yum 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 yum.
And yes, for firstborn stuff. But if they can apply that same thing to some of the Primaris tanks as well, that I'm going to be really fascinated to see. And it's also really interesting because we get at the end, you have the Terminator helmet armor appear with the Inquisitorial logo. So
Yeah,
it's kind of a big hint we're going Death Watch.
yeah,
And part
yeah.
of me thinks, wait, could this be why they went back to the and redid the index? Not just because fans went a bit us Death Watch collectors went a bit
Maybe.
because they realised, oh wait, we have this in production. People love the Death Watch bits of Space Marine 2. They're a bit annoyed that we got rid of an entire army that we invented for them to play, and we have this coming down the pipeline. Should we maybe have something ready to go, lads? Just so it's not a surprise when it comes out and people then go, "Can I not play Death Watch anymore?"
Oh yes, that particular rumor of the month. I think as well. Another thing I really want to talk quickly we start wrapping is the cinematography, and it's a really weird thing to kind of want to hone in on.
No.
But
It's
there,
what I'm
yeah,
going to talk about. So, but go for it.
there is a real confidence in how the camera is being moved and held. It's a virtual camera, yes, but it's a camera all the
Yeah.
same. There was a confidence that he had with the original Astartes, but you could also see how much that confidence has grown. There's little moments here which are beautifully framed. And I'm not just talking about the tank knocking the car off or the seeing the chainsaw go through somebody from the point of the person that's being bisected. That's beautiful. But the little moments like the turning the corner and having the Marine with the cloak over his arm standing overwatch as the other ones are walking down steps. It's nothing that you would stop and think about, but that is a lot of elements that were really, they can't have been easy to put
God, no.
together. That light and shadow, having the sign in the background, having the cloth of the cloak, having the human, what looks to be either a human boy or a recruit. It's hard to tell. It's a shadow. Yeah, sitting in there. There's a lot of stuff that's all going on. The Tyranids running and having the camera running along the herd of Tyranids with the tank in the background, like it's a freaking BBC documentary. Yeah, there's so many elements in filmmaking that's taking place here that's really getting my excitement levels up.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to sit here and scream now, so I'll let Adam White take over because he knows the correct terms for all these things.
Well, actually, let's, if anything, we can go the other way. So, seeing as at the time of recording, I'm 24 hours on from not getting any Nine Inch Nails tickets because I don't want to pay scalpers. There's a
I'm
quote
sorry.
from Trent Reznor in the Studio 66 documentary where he talks about like the bass and reverb meters, I think it is, on one of his old production tools and studio desks, and he goes, "Yeah, that's the little needle thing that you see on your application." In the last 20 years, there have been so many more ways to record and produce sound. Like anyone can do it. Does that mean that there's been a whole lot of good new shit? No, there hasn't. It doesn't matter what you're using. It doesn't matter if you're getting extra tech. It's like Freddie Francis, who you won't know, but he's a cameraman who is a little bit good, or was a little bit good. And he always said to people, what do you shoot on, Freddie? What's your secret? Well, I shoot on a fast film if we're in low light and a slow film if we're in sunlight. Yeah, but what's your secret? You get a good crew. Yeah, but what about the camera specs? Well, you get a camera with the right amount of lenses. It doesn't matter what you have. I mean, my goodness, the Fluff and Hammer, the Old All House, the Moonbase 2, the Underbase, they're podcasts that were done without a lot of tech. It doesn't matter what tech you have, you just got to do it. And then it comes down to using skills. And the biggest thing when I was doing short films and features and all stuff like this is that your short film doesn't have to look like a short film. You just have to think cleverly. You have to shoot carefully. You have to make the most of what is in frame. You have to consider the frame.
Yeah.
It's something that's kind of losing a lot of steam in Hollywood, where you have these big soft lit shots and like when the DP for Gladiator doesn't work on Gladiator 2 because it's all soft light with multiple camera setups and it just looks less than it could be.
Yeah.
That's when you realize that you're losing something. And I know this is a waffle, but it all comes down to this, is that yes, as Adam said, if you're treating the camera well and you're setting up to shoot the shots in the way that will make the most of every moment, you will spark something in the viewer that is beyond what they expect. Now, my favorite moment, apart from the fact that I truly, with my soul, believe that Gabriel Angelos is in that trailer. He is absolutely in that. Don't believe the darkened armor. He is there. I'll tell you that. But the shot that does it for me is the guy walking up the Retributor with the Dreadnought in the background, because it is perfectly framed. It is almost matter of fact, but it absolutely makes the most of the subject matter. It is the tease of the Dreadnought. It's not showing you the whole thing. It's showing you just enough for everybody that sees it to go, oh my goodness, it's a Dreadnought. That's amazing. You got a guy in the background just doing regular stuff in the background. The main guy is shot perfectly. He is on the right, he's literally proportioned in the screen as you would in a film. Because of the way that he is looking, he is balanced correctly in the camera. He is not center. He is moving with a purpose, and there is a reason. And you can even imagine the situation. It is just really good shooting. Adam is absolutely correct on this. It is the use of the camera, the use of the framing. It is the difference between the hundreds of fan films that don't hit the mark and that one film. I want to say it's Guardsman, the one with the Tyranid in the darkness, which is majestically framed, is so economical, and does so little with the Space Marine that it works with the fact that it's a guy in a clunky Space Marine suit that can barely walk. But it works because it's respectful. The camera really works there. The camera is doing so much. And this being a virtual camera doesn't make it easier to do. You don't think that just because this is all in a computer, they can just whiz around. They have had to think out every element of this. Again, as Adam says, it's lighting. In this scene, you have soft top light, which is artificial. There's no way in a regular atmosphere that his eyes would be darkened out like that. But that is an effect that they put in there to help tell a story. It's brilliant. So that's my 300 cents on the cinematography.
I know it feels like I'm constantly shitting on the Death of Hope, and I am. I'm kidding. The reason I use Death of Hope is Death of Hope came out exactly the same time as Astartes. It was one guy who put a lot of work into something, and it shows. It looks, the models and the rigging is beautiful, but the problem is it's too much, and there's a severe lack of knowledge on how to frame things. Astartes works in simplicity because it knows how to frame. Death of Hope doesn't know how to frame, and as a result, you get a lot of everything, and it gets too much and convoluted, and it's really hard to parse out what you're seeing. This is absolutely somebody who knows how to frame and how to shoot, and that's rare.
Also, I'm just going to quickly add in as well. I just did a little. I did a really I look really stupid, like measuring the screen with my hands. But the trailer isn't 235:1. That is CinemaScope.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is a choice. Nobody's picked up on this. You look at that trailer again. Look at the top of the bottom of the screen. There are extra bars. They're not bars. It doesn't fill the screen. Remember, YouTube is already in a certain widescreen format.
Yeah.
This, if you watch it on your TV, will have big honking bars at the top of the bottom. This was done for a reason. This is done for grandeur.
Yes.
It is CinemaScope. The biggest drawback that I take from this is what a lot of people are saying. They want a movie of this. Which then brings us right round to the fact that I still to this date don't know the legal status, and even though like D and I have covered this before, I've got an inkling that I'm probably going to be covering it again at some point. But I think the idea of remaking Ultramarines and doing it with this guy and basically kind of not rebooting it, but taking the bones and building something around it with this level of skill would change it so much.
See, on that subject, one thing I've been wondering, and I wasn't sure if it was worth voicing it or not. Do we think there's actually going to be, dialogue in this? Is it going to be voice acted, or is it going to be silent?
I don't know.
Because that's an interesting thing to consider. Because that can be a tricky one to shift across to actually having dialogue in place.
Samaya said it when Astartes came out that he didn't want to have dialogue because no dialogue is always going to be better than bad dialogue.
True.
And he didn't have the confidence to write good dialogue. Now, whether he now has Games Workshop behind him writing the dialogue, who knows? I've got a feeling that the man is going to. I think it's going to be very Samurai Jack, like original Astartes was. I think it's going to be minimalistic dialogue.
And I'm sure if he was uncertain, GW has a smorgasbord of writers in the pool. They could just go, here's the Rolodex. Let's pick a name at random.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just look at how many of the writing team from Black Library, the authors in their pool, write for things like Rogue Trader, Dark Tide.
Yeah.
Though I suppose at this point I must be the one naysayer and just go remember who the original Ultramarines movie was written by.
There is that, yes.
I know. I think there will be. I think there will be. I think there will be battle scenes where it is not needed, and then there will be narrative beats where they concentrate it. I think to help the team out, I would not be surprised if maybe, for instance, going back to our Dreadnought, maybe the Dreadnought talks, because it is easier to. It's also as well more fitting in tone with the world to have a cold machine voice.
Yeah.
Provide information, or voiceovers, because Amazon did most of its heavy lifting with a simple voiceover.
Yeah.
Very true.
We'll
Definitely.
see.
I cannot wait, to be honest.
Between 11 to 20 months. So, with all that being said, we will get out of here. Thank you so much, Mr. White, for joining us.
No problem.
And thank you so much to David, the biggest, swingiest D.
Not a problem.
And thank you to you folks at home for listening, if indeed you still are.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Yeah, why aren't you stopping?